Chief, so, I'm just, the only reason I'm not thrilled, I don't like my picture on.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
like
not a
having
fan
my
of it
picture
either.
taken, and that's the way it is. So, usually somebody will catch me doing something really stupid and looking cross-eyed or something. Okay, Mr. Leader.
As you guys may or may not know, my fiance and I purchased the old feed store, Butch Bernicle's old building, in August. Currently, we're running business out of there. The plan that I'd like to do is be able to live in that building. We are on Main Street. We do have a second level. The two spaces that I would want to utilize are not on ground level. I know that's an issue, has been an issue with Crescent. I would like to ask the council if that is okay. From what I understand, it is zoned commercial. When it was originally zoned, obviously there was nobody living there. Like I said, I'm on Main Street. I'd like to be kind of considered part of the group and be able to live in my own building.
What was the issues Cresco had?
With loitering, it was the ground floor apartments in the downtown area.
Oh.
They didn't want, apparently there was an issue with the highways there, and people that were living on the ground floor were smoking cigarettes, and the smoke was going into their building, and they didn't appreciate that. I don't really know what Cresco ended up doing, if they said, it's no big deal, or if they said no ground floor apartments.
Okay, the question I have first of all is I'm not sure about this. It's zone commercial, know that.
Right.
Is this something that we have to go to the zoning commission for? Well,
What would be the difference between this and an apartment above the store?
exactly.
Right,
I mean,
and
on
that's
Main
where I
Street.
don't know specifically if they're zoned both, or if they're only zoned commercial and it's just assumed that there's living spaces.
We were under the impression too that it was an open zoning, that we didn't have to worry about it being a commercial or residential. So, which is, I mean, because that's what we were told when we purchased the building.
Commercial for the tax base,
Right.
because they're living
But we've had, I would, my thought, okay, we've had people living above the Herald office, people living above the bars for as long as I've been in town. I don't know, there shouldn't be any reason that that part of town would be zoned a different type of commercial than where Butch's old building was.
Unless there's been changes in that, if there had been apartments up there before, you could say that's grandfathered in, all the other ones are fine, they're okay, nobody's got any issues with it. Since this is new to that, that'd be the only thing. Has anything changed since those were okayed to now? Probably not, but that would be the only thing you'd have to worry about, is if now they said you can't put a second floor, living quarters, something crazy like that. But
Do you,
Changed the ruling, and it said that, basically, that if, like, say, 20 years ago, they said it was okay to have apartments, then 15 years afterwards, they say, well, we're changing our rules, your grandfather did, but them can't. So I think basically what we're gonna have to do, we have to talk to the zoning board in order to find out for sure what has to be.
how soon are you looking at remodeling?
I was trying to, basically during the winter is what it kind of, started the project. There's some things that need to be done anyways to the building that would, be included in that project, but would get done regardless.
I think that we had thought about possibly the middle of next year, as late as this time next year being as late as we want to be in there.
Okay.
But
So, I mean, we're not talking about you want to start tomorrow.
No.
I'm thinking it's going to take me like probably 30 days or more to
And
do
that's
some.
completely.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done in there in order to, we want to do some things to it before we can even move in. So it's, it's not going to be a tomorrow type deal.
So you talked upper level.
It would be both. I would utilize the upstairs and then what was the warehouse area, which is not completely a second floor, but it is not ground floor.
It was a loading dock.
It's split level.
Yes.
So table it to December meeting.
Yeah, as far as the zoning part of it, we'll have to get the zoning board moving together.
And then as far as the chicken part, don't know exactly what the ordinance says about that kind of pet.
There isn't one.
I guess the question is, I would like to have a couple chickens, not a whole bunch. I would not have roosters, so there would be no crazy noise from them. It'd be like 2 to 5 chickens at most.
You're talking in the building or what?
During the winter, it'd be an indoor-outdoor thing. Winter, they would pretty much be inside the building because of weather. Spring and summer, they would kind of be able to go out in their run, which would be connected to the building.
Yeah, we'd like to build an indoor-outdoor
In and
coop.
out, roost inside at night, and during the day they can.
There's no ordinance on that? There isn't, huh?
No,
I know in Rochester, you can, yeah,
you can.
can.
Yeah, you can have, in some
Yeah,
cities,
there's
you can
quite a
have up
few
to
cities.
5, but no roosters. But no roosters for noise.
Which is fine because I'm petrified of them anyways, so.
I don't.
So is that something that we
I
need
mean,
to?
it's something that we probably have to limit a number on,
Yeah,
but.
I'm wondering if we
Going to
don't
be
need
the
to
main thing.
write an ordinance.
And then it's gonna have to be something that the city can come in and check and
Yep.
at any point say, no more.
Well, we're not wanting to open a chicken farm or a hatchery or anything. We just want to
I
correct.
understand, but we have to set it up so that we can come in there if something,
Right.
if the smell gets bad enough that somebody's complaining, then we have to come in there and do something.
Correct.
So give me 30 days to check on zoning. Put that on the or on the agenda for next month. And we'll call a zoning and ordinance or a zoning and planning group together. Okay. That's it for you. Done?
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
Where's the rust? Burning.
Probably a week ago there, I'd gone by the dump down there.
When
and
you
it was-
called me.
What's that?
When you called me.
Yeah. Well, prior to that, I'd gone by there and I saw some flames and whatever. I guess I probably should have called then. I didn't. Thought no big deal. I'd gone by a couple days after that, saw them again. Well, then we went down, say Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever that day was, I called you, dump our leaving the compost, and the fire was going pretty good down. So I called you and left a message. Didn't know who I should have called and whatnot. Called me back, kind of told me what the scoop was there and whatnot. And then after that, I called Tony to see what the laws were regarding that. Dealt with extremely rudely. He ended up hanging up on us after I repeatedly just said, hey, you're the fire chief, I'm a citizen, can we do this? Is this right, legal, whatever?
Well, let me explain to you where the stuff that you found out there, where it was coming from.
Well, I know where it came from.
It was being done record retention,
Mhm.
okay? The old stuff at Old City Hall, we're trying to go through the old moldy crap to get rid of that. Ed was actually doing the burning in a 50-gallon barrel and thought he was going to be dumping ashes. Some of the stuff in the bottom of the barrel hadn't burned. And so that's when he dumped the ashes out there, that's when some of it, and I'm assuming it was still alive, am I correct? When it went out there, and it started flaring up. So that's where that is. Basically, the tree dump is for burning of trees. We have problems with people who are dumping all kinds of crap out there. But for the most part, that is for trees, leaves, compost material, that kind of stuff.
But you realize that's not even remotely close to legal.
It's outside of city
It's
limits.
not,
But that's city controlled, you lit the fire, correct? You stirred the fire up, we saw it all happen, the city tracked it. That cannot be left unattended, period. It has to be fenced in, it has to be inaccessible to anyone besides the city controlling it. It has to be a minimum of a quarter mile away from a resident. It cannot have combustible materials right there with the fire. This is all, I'm not talking about the Cresco tree dump, Tony. I'm talking about our.
Same scenario.
Take it up with them then, I'm talking about ours.
The one that sits right across the street from a recreational park, by the way.
And this is a harvest. Corn stalks, people are dumping their leaves down there. All this stuff. Why did we light that up? Tony told us it had been burning for 2 weeks.
When it burns, it normally does burn for a long period of time.
We can't leave that there unattended.
Where are you getting, what I wanna know is where are you getting the information
Right out
as
of the
far as
state
the
code
laws?
book.
That's what I want.
Yeah, I've got that.
Is Cresco's fenced in, Don?
What's that?
I'm just asking Don.
The open burning of trees and tree trimmings not originated on the premises provides that the burning site is operated by a local government entity. The burning site is fenced and access is controlled. Burning is conducted on a scheduled basis and is supervised at all times. Burning is conducted only when weather conditions are favorable with respect to surrounding property, and the burn site is limited to areas at least 1/4 mile away from any inhabited building, unless a written waiver in the form of an affidavit is submitted by the owner of the building to the department or local government entity prior to the first instance of burning.
What's your state code number?
455B.131.
455B.131. Okay. I have been here, and this is no excuse, okay? I have lived here since 1960.
Right.
That has always been the way it is.
Absolutely. That
And
doesn't
it
make it
has-
right either.
It is, no, it doesn't. And so it's something we're gonna have to look at. If we have to, we'll have to shut that burn dump down. At that point, any tree in town that is removed, somebody's gonna have to pay for the removal of it out of the city limits, or out of the city of Lawrence. It's gonna get costly.
Or it could be attended when it was burning,
No,
not
I think
during
you're on
the...
the right track. You can't pick and choose. If you wanna follow it one
There
way,
you go.
Yep.
you have to go 100%.
There you go.
And if that's what the taxpayers want, then we'll just raise the taxes and put a fence around it.
Yep.
Man,
Sure. Absolutely.
And the thing of it is that there's something else about out there that I've heard rumblings about, and I need to talk with Eddie Junior Miller because I know that he is at Fort Bankville. Okay. There is something, is there an easement through that property or right away through that property to get to the river? And if there is, there's legalities about that that says we cannot put a fence around it. And at that point in time, I don't know where you would go. At that point, it just becomes barren land, and nobody will be dumping anything out there.
Well, the reason that it raised such an eyebrow to me is the common sense part of that. I don't know how that ever got lit. We haven't had rain prior to that for weeks. And supposedly, as Tony said, it's been burning for 2 weeks. And we've got our leaf compost pile right there. I don't think that's a good idea. You're right next to that grass field going right to Ed Miller's. It's unattended. It's stirred up and it's burning. It's not smoldering, it's flaming.
And I don't know what the answer is, but it's gonna take some looking at an alternate through into the attorneys. Because if there is an easement through there and it cannot be fenced, then that redump becomes basically non-existent. There won't be a compost pile, there won't be a tree dump, there won't be anything out there. I mean, it'll all have to stop. Compost pile, I still cringe every time I think about it. People rake up their leaves, but they don't pick up their yard before they rake up their leaves. So I went out to get some compost one time, and that was the only time. And there were pop cans, beer cans, pop bottles, plastic bags, diapers, everything else in the compost pile. And it was like, excuse me, this is not going on my garden.
But I think even that was, by my description on it, and I could be wrong, even that compost was to be scheduled and monitored. Like, couldn't we have an open day where people brought their compost down there and our city guy was there monitoring it?
That's a possibility, yeah.
I think that's kind of what it was initially set up to do, and it kind of got out of hand and.
Yeah,
No, I know different state, but what is it? Preston's dump deal is completely enclosed. You have to go to City Hall, you put a $5 deposit on a key, you can go out there, you turn the key when you're done.
and see if there is, at one time, I know that there was a gate or a chain that used to be across there, and that's why I need to check with Eddie Miller Jr., because there was something to do with easements that could not be locked, people could not be locked out. And so if there is an easement in there or a river road of some sort that goes back to the river from the, like DNR type stuff, then I don't really know what, but I know the whole thing is, it's a landfill. I mean, that's what it was in a city dump. When I was a kid, everybody took everything out there and dumped it. So,
And for years it was locked.
yeah,
I remember it being locked for years.
yeah, and then all of a sudden,
And then
there
it
was
was
something
open.
that came up, and I can't, it's been many, many years ago. And there was a reason why they took the thing down, so I need to find out what that reasoning was.
And as far as like the city documents and stuff, I mean, still, is that a good idea to have them out there? I mean, I know you said you were trying to burn them in a barrel or something, but if this stuff's floating around with
There
numbers
shouldn't be
and names
anything-
and,
There shouldn't be anything, in our record retention manual, I mean, there are certain things that are to be kept for like 5 years.
Right, right.
Some are for 7 years. For the most part, we shred. If the stuff that went out there is from the basement of the old city hall, we couldn't shred it because it's so full of mold and mildew that it's kind of like hazmat material.
but I'm just saying too, I mean,
Yeah.
isn't there a better alternative than, I don't know if you could even recycle it, that's even better, maybe not,
You
but.
can recycle it as long as it doesn't have social security numbers on it and names of, certain documents and things like that.
Right, but that's the reason why I don't think this should be blowing around out there. There is numbers and stuff that probably shouldn't just fall in anybody's hand. With the day and age of identity theft and stuff, I don't think that's a good idea to have that blowing around out there.
And so it should have been burnt down to nothing but ash before he ever took those ashes out. Yeah. I know that the other place that it can be burnt and left to burn, is where Navajo used to burn everything in a 50-gallon barrel out at sewer plant. And the ash then, I mean, it burnt, and I believe the ashes was scattered and it was just ash. So that's probably, on some of this stuff, probably the direction we're gonna have to go. As far as the new stuff that's coming out of here, that stuff can all be shredded without any questions, any problems. It's just when that old city hall basement has been flooded, I don't know how many times. And then with the hardware store, with the fire at the hardware store, all the smoke and the water went into that basement, and we lost almost everything that was in the basement. They kept it, trying to preserve it. I know that Navin and Larry, they burnt for days as they could get it to dry out to burn. But the stuff that was still kept there was just absolutely mold, mildew, crap. So it's stuff that we need to get rid of, and we're trying to get rid of through record retention. But it does need to be burnt completely down to ash, and that's something we need to take a look at. Anything that's out of here will end up shredded.
The last point of that I definitely want to address though. I just really feel like I've had enough treatment from our fire chief, as rudely as we have. I recorded the conversation because I knew it was going to be that way. And I would really like people to listen to what this is. This is a citizen from town. I had him beating on my door at 6 o'clock back in February because Casey called me in and saw me dump my ash pan. from my wood burner and my compost pile in the garden.
And you weren't supposed to be burning them.
And it was smoldering. Tony
It
came
was
up at
flaming up.
Tony came up at 6 o'clock in the morning, beating on my door. Fenton was 9
Because
months
he didn't
old.
think you would get caught.
Yeah, just let him finish though.
Fenton was 9 months old.
He does
I
it to
begged
me
him-
all the time.
I begged him to
You
stop
don't like it
beating
the
on the
other way?
door and screaming. Tony was calling all kinds of names at my house before 6 a.m. in the morning. I tried to set him down. I said, Tony, I just dumped my ash pan. It's just the ash from my front.
In a
You
cardboard
son of a
box.
bitch, you think you're done in town, blah, 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 screaming, ranting, and raving. Okay, we got a little bit of history because of that now. Don't appreciate that, don't think a professional fire chief should be doing that. I recorded this conversation. I think you should listen to it. I really think it's something I'd like to show off here, because I just don't think people should be spoken
Why do
to
you
that
think I hung up
initially.
on you?
Is it something anybody want to hear? If you don't want to hear it, that's fine. If you want to look the other way and let it slide through, I absolutely understand.
I think that it's something that should be heard, especially with the way that he's reacting to what you're saying right now.
The other thing I can tell you is that, and I don't know how many people know this, Tony is no longer going to be fire chief after the
That's
first
fine.
of the year.
That's fine. But I
that
think
is
it'd be a
by
good
his
precedent to
choice.
set too, of what not to do. All I did was ask a simple question, belittled,
And I
berated the
asked you
whole
what
time.
you wanted me to do. And you said,
I think we'll just have to
So-
play it.
What does this council want to do?
Well,
Play it.
I mean, I think it should be heard. I think
is that shut off now?
I just typed this up too because some of it gets a little, he's screaming and a lot of it's kind of hard to understand.
You don't have to.
If anybody else would have made that phone call, I can tell you what, they would never want to call and complain again because that was rude.
And that's one of the reasons why I hesitated initially. I went by that 3 days, saw that burning, thought, Jesus, you know, this probably shouldn't be burning. I just don't want to take a ton of crap. I don't want to be the bad guy and get my ass chewed for, oh, just leave it alone, we've done it for 20 years. That still doesn't make it right. Anybody else want any copies of this? Do you guys want any copies of this? Anyone else?
Hey, did the mayor call you? Yeah, what's the scoop on that?
there copies to keep?
Go ahead. I mean, that's your fire chief. That doesn't seem like a very professional way. I don't think I did anything wrong pulling that in, did I? I mean, if I did something wrong with that, I'd sure like to know, and I'll gladly bow down to it. But, you know, I'm kind of tired of that. And I think if any one of you would have done it, you'd have had a fit. And it's just real easy to sit there and go, oh, tough luck, he's just getting it, you know. I've been brushed aside before. This is enough of this.
I guess where I'm at with it, I guess it was pretty unprofessional. You know, as far as the fire chief, but also is that where I mean, he's a fire chief on the way out. I mean, I don't know if there's not a lot we can do to him. Yes, we should set a precedent in the future.
Yeah,
I mean, it's unacceptable.
Right.
I mean, it shouldn't be treated like that.
That's like if I were to call you, Corey, with a concern, and then you came back at me like Tony did to Russ, I would never want to come to you again with any concern
Yeah, I'm not
whatsoever. I
disagreeing
would
with
think,
that.
why am I even trying or even calling anybody?
And like I said, that's why I hesitated before. I went by there 2, 3, 4 days, whatever it was, saw the flames, Jesus. Went down there that night, dumping the compost. We dumped one whole batch. I came back, God, I can't let that burn. It's gonna get bigger. And I made the call, and that's why I recorded it, because I've had my run-ins with him in the past. I didn't want to start anything. I just wanted to know if that was okay and legal to run that down there like that. And that's the answer we got. So I did my own research and found that it isn't. If I'd have known that right off the bat, I wouldn't have called the fire chief, but that's what you have the fire chief for. It's no different than calling one of you guys and asking you, hey, can my dog run around? How long can my leash be?
Well, I'm gonna look with you. Did we burn them out there? Or did you say you took them out there and dumped the ashes out and then that lit? What happened?
No, it was
No,
trees
I
that were
burnt
lit.
I burnt that whole brush pile in the rain. The whole big brush pile. It rained almost the entire day I burned it. And it actually rained a little too much. We got a hard downpour about 11 o'clock in the morning. And that slowed it down to the point where, and then that afternoon it was still raining. There was nothing but smoldering left. And I called Tony and I says, you know, I can sit here. The city can pay me to sit here all night long if it's still smoldering, or we can get a bunch of fire trucks and we drown it trying to stop the smoking, or I guarantee you with stumps, you know, and that's what I was told, you know, and it was like, it was a judgment call. And Tony said, you know, I said, everything's burnt up. Well, what happens, you got stumps, you know, because like I said, Dusty dropped a lot of stumps out there from the trees that we haven't removed. It's pretty hard to get them stumps out. We could, it can't, I'm not saying it can't be done. Yes, we can be done. It can be. But at what expense and how much, you know, and that's why and Tony trusts me on it, and I go out there, yeah, it's smoldered for a long time. When he states it, when he states that Tony says it's been burning, it's been smoldering. Did I personally see any open flames? Maybe there was. Maybe I just wasn't there at the right time, or whatever. But if somebody goes out there and dumps a bunch of leaves on a smoldering stump, I can see it flared up. It probably could have. That's
It was
possible.
definitely burning for 3 or 4 days, flames that I saw. I've actually took pictures of it.
Weekend?
No, during the week. Because it was, whatever day that I called you was the 3rd or 4th day that I'd seen that. And that's when I said, that's probably a little too long. Tony told us that it had been burning for 2 weeks. I don't doubt that. I saw Casey stirring it up with the tractor many days. Like I said, I didn't think much of it. I didn't want to stick my nose in there, didn't want to become involved with it because of this type of behavior. But it was flaming up. Barb asked me, she says, it's smoldering, is it flaming? I said, Barb, they're 2 feet tall, 10 feet wide. You go in there, it's the logs, it's the coals, it's everything. There was other stuff burning. She said, well, probably some people dumped their stuff down. I said, I understand. So I kicked through and I came up with the documents from the city. It wasn't anybody else's stuff that was flaming this up. It was the logs that had been burning for 3, 4 days
That's
to
what I
2
was
weeks.
confused at first. I thought we were talking about you're burning just the documents of it.
No,
But
it
it's
just
actually,
dumped the ashes from what he was burning onto
Yeah,
the
okay.
log. Yeah.
I thought
They
it.
never got burned out.
I mean, not that it matters.
They should. I mean, they should.
Yeah. Well, so basically where are we at with it? I mean, as far as the burn down, we obviously need to check into what we need to do there. I mean, that looks like a legit code.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. It's been here a lot longer than I've been here. That doesn't make it right. And if you wanna punish the citizens or whatever by making it right, go at it that way. But it's not right. And if it was your house right there, I guarantee you would feel very comfortable with that stuff burning for 2 weeks. If I was Ed Miller, no way. That grass field that's probably quite less than a quarter mile from that plane, no way. No way. Harvest.
Well, I don't
2
think any of
weeks
us are
ago-
saying it's right.
Right, I mean, it's just too wrong. If
Yeah.
it's, you know, I understand if you can't completely fence it in or whatever, but that thing should be burned in small portions, common sense. If it's not burned after an 8-hour shift, put the thing out. Hose down the pile you got lit up. Don't light the whole thing on fire and let it burn for 2 weeks. I just don't see that as being, that's just bad common sense.
And
Well-
what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to take a look at this and see where do we stand. Do we need to, is it says we need to fence it in. If it is legal for us to fence it in, we need to fence it in. It's gonna take taxpayer dollars to pay for the fencing.
Or even restrict the access, I think would be the biggest, the second biggest thing. Monitoring it first.
Yep.
Second biggest thing, you know, that simple little chain that Nat had across there, that was, it kept the honest people on. You didn't have people dumping things in there they weren't supposed to be dumping and burning things that weren't
But
supposed to be
that's,
burning.
we also need to find out why that chain was taken down, because if that chain was taken down because we can't block the right of way, then we got another issue.
I can't imagine it was that, and I could be wrong, because for years, that controlled the access to that.
Yep.
I mean, it was open, when Nav said it was open for you to dump your brush in there, you ran down and you dumped your brush. And then it was closed after that.
Yep, and what I remember hearing is, I remember hearing something about a right-of-way getting towards the river that couldn't be blocked. And I don't remember if it was Scott and Eddie Jr. that had checked into it with the county and with the DNR, and if it was after that point that the chain had to come down. But that's something that I can check with them both and check with Nav to see why the chain came down.
There was always that driveway in there to the back, for whatever reason.
That's
You
the
know.
one that I'm thinking is the right of way going down to the river. Because fishermen used to drive their vehicles down, there used to be an archery range down in there.
They still drive back there, so.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
the
people do.
gate
Well,
could
that's
be put
conservation,
back
that's part of
farther or a
conservation.
Yeah,
chain
that back there is.
I'm
to
not
be that.
sure how far back it goes for you, I know it's out of county.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Conservation board's
Yeah.
part of that, I don't know.
But let me,
Line.
So where are we at, so where are we at
Russ,
with this?
let me, give me 30 days, give me till the December meeting, I'll see what I can find out. And then we'll have to talk about it at council anyway in 30 days, once we find out, to figure out what we're gonna do. Are we gonna fence, are we going to, what direction? Cost of well, yeah, but it also,
That ordinance, that doesn't say one or the other.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the wording is kind of weird. I think that the restriction of access is basically what they're getting at with the fencing.
and
That's what I get out of it.
if it gets to a point where, and trust me, fencing is expensive, because I was going to have my yard fenced in and found out that just around my house in one flower bed to the garden was gonna cost me almost $8,000. And the next bid I got was $6,000, so it's kinda like I can't even fathom what the cost on the fencing would be.
But I bet that's a hell of a lot cheaper than a fire in
Well,
somebody's
yes,
backyard.
exactly, but what I'm trying to get at here is that depending upon financing, depending upon what the city's got and what the taxpayers wanna spend on it, maybe it's something that we have to look at a different route. Maybe that could no longer be something that the city owns. Maybe the city's gonna have to put her up for sale and say, done, see you bye. I don't wanna go that route either.
Then at
But-
that point, wouldn't you have to, I don't know if you would have to, but as far as people disposing of their leaves in the fall, we can't burn them in town, so we can't take them there. Would there have to be some kind of an arrangement made for that to be picked up like they do in Cresco?
Yeah.
And I guess, the bigger issue Russ is maybe getting at is respect from public officials to citizens. And I mean, it's, you know, vice
And
versa
it's
as well.
vice versa, because,
Correct.
trust me, I can remember the phone call I got at my house from the same person sitting here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And if my mother, who's 80-some years old today, answered that phone, my car would have been in fast forward right to your house.
The difference is,
There is no difference, Russ,
okay, explain this to me.
because I'm a person and a citizen also.
Right.
Bullshit.
So how did I disrespect you in that conversation to deserve that?
Recording it.
That's not
You never
disrespectful.
told me you were recording.
He doesn't have to, and what's disrespectful is the use of the word
I
stupid.
don't wanna get in a debate about that, I mean, I wanna get in matter at hand.
Yeah.
I think we're all, I think where we're at,
Yep.
I mean, do you have any more to add to that, or?
Well, I just wanted to say that I've had conversations with Barb, and we've both been perfectly respectful to each other, and I think when I was here before, I tried to be respectful to you, and I hope to everyone, and I hope I was, you know, and I think, I felt, you know, that you guys listened to me and respected me, and I had a little issue with some Facebook posts being run off and gossiped all over town, which I don't think was respectful by an official to a citizen. I don't think that should be done by a member of council, but it was, and I let that lie. But I just think there needs to be mutual respect, and then maybe we can all work together and everybody can sing kumbaya, or you know what I'm getting at. I just, enough of the, that's my opinion.
Everything just needs to stop, everybody needs to be respectful to everybody, and that's the way it should be.
Yep.
End of story.
I guess why Russ recorded the conversation was because, you know, everybody knows that he has a bit of a reputation for perhaps being a bit gruff, but he wanted to show that, you know, sometimes there's reasons for it because he isn't always treated like a prince either, you know. So that's my 2 cents worth for what it's worth.
Had I called Joe Blow in the fire department, or, you know, I don't wanna say the city council, because you guys are held in the same regards as far as I'm concerned as the fire chief would be. You know, if you just called some Joe Blow and you'd gotten that kind of response, you know, that's the way it's gonna be. I would just respond to that, something that wasn't my profession. But if somebody called up my profession, asking me a question similarly like that, I wouldn't have treated somebody like that. You know, if you're in a bar and you're talking, that's fine, man, but you're the head of the fire department. Hey, you could have handled it so many different ways. You could have just said, I don't know the answer to that. Let me find out, I'll get back to you, instead of that. And we ended up having to look it up ourselves and find out the answer, because you can't get a straight answer.
And see, and I had no idea.
And I didn't either. That's why I was calling.
Now that we know, it's kind of beyond the point that everybody just needs to chill and respect everybody for who they are and what they do. We need to take a look at this, and I'll start digging tomorrow, see what I can come up with. Other than that, I don't know what the answer's gonna be. Yeah.
If everybody's done.
Other than that, what?
Let's move on to the next item on the agenda if everybody's done. Thank you.
Ready? All right. We need to set a public hearing for a budget amendment. What are we over on? Should I guess sewer and water?
See you guys.
Yeah.
Next December? Okay, December 5th. No, we just need to set a date. We should be okay with that. Building permits, have we had any building permits?
We've had 2 building permits. One was with Lime Springs Beef, and the other one was with Jones Smith and Corey Smith's house.
What was Lime Springs beef?
That's the building.
The whole building?
That should have been a good size.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
$250 or
Huh?
Yeah.
250? Have we had any complaint with it? Okay. Issues and admin, Miss Marcy, you got anything?
Snow removal. I know that, Kelly at the post office was wondering how she's gonna get rid of her snow in front of the post office if we can't put it in the street. She says nobody wants to clean the street at the sidewalk because you can't put snow into the street.
What we did last year, I took care of it last year, we plowed the street in front of the post office because there was a complaint that people could walk on the sidewalk, they couldn't get from their car to the sidewalk. So we actually went out there and plowed that snow and carried it all the way down to the pile in front of the bank. That's how we cleaned it out last year.
And that's great, but at recent meetings, you can't move this, no,
Can't
you
put it
can't put it into a pile because that's the city ordinance, so.
The city can't do it, or we can't do it, or both can.
You could push the snow into a pile, but as far as that pile goes, we can't do it.
You would have to remove it.
You would have to move that pile of snow.
The
We're
city-
not supposed
the
to
city cannot
touch any snow that is
remove it.
touched by, but that is not city snow.
And you can't.
It doesn't make sense.
The snow in front in like the post office parking area, is that city snow then?
In the
The
park.
Yes,
parking
but
area
if
in
it's
front
from
of
the
that is
sidewalk,
city.
then
Oh, I
it's
see.
not.
But the snow from
And
the
that's-
sidewalk can only go to a certain spot. Like, if you took the snow from on that sidewalk and pushed it down, picked up the pile and hauled it to the ballpark where they dump the snow, it's fine.
Okay.
But as far as taking that snow and dumping it on the pile that he's created, then that's not fine.
Okay.
That's the way the rulings
So
are.
it's gotta be removed basically then, not
Yes.
just.
Basically, why we
Push to
dug into
another
that, the church which I was kind of against with
Church
the
and
state
school.
law. But the church wanted to be able to push it out and have us be liable to push, them push their, out in the road,
Right,
and us push it down, and that's against law for us to do it. I was
right.
against
And we
it,
run
but
into
it's
the
against
same
law for
issue
us
at
to
the
do it.
school.
So I mean,
Because we were pushing the
Trying to
snow
be
from
a
the street
neighbor and
around.
help them, but
Right.
legally can't.
Oh, and I know even pushing it across, like when a person pushes out their driveway.
Exactly.
And they push it across the highway, you can actually do that, but you're responsible for anything you left in the road. Like if you leave the two sides of it, you push your bucket across and left the two sides, and a car hits that, that's your ass.
And per se,
run
if
into
anything happens
Yeah.
to that car, if that car, say, lands in that snow pile, you're the problem. It's not the,
But then doesn't that also leave the same opening for the city?
yes.
Okay.
But most of our snow we have to move most of our snow to a pile somewhere anyways, because we can't just leave these high piles on.
And then the piles get
So each one of those businesses is gonna have to individually move their snow, they're gonna have to load their snow and move it to the Ball Diamond River.
Did all of that answer your question at all,
So no matter
Well,
how you
I
look
am
at
not throwing snow in the trunk of my car and hauling it down to the ball
You see,
field.
we run across the big issue was is because of the churches and at the school. Because when Casey had it set up last year, him and Mel worked it out last year, that they plowed the streets and Mel pushed the snow out on the street. Casey took, when he was cleaning the street, pushed the snow back into the school parking lot, which we had quite a few complainers. Billy Aiken saying we were cleaning the school parking lot, which we were not. But these people were bitching, saying they're spending all our time up there cleaning the school parking lot, doing this and that. Well then, in the meanwhile, what Navajo used to do is, okay, they pushed the snow in, he put a pile at one end of the school and one at the other end of the school. Then the city would have to turn around, go back, load up that pile of snow, and haul it down to the ballpark or wherever and get rid of it. Well, in Katie's logic, they were moving the snow pile back to the parking lot, Mother Nature was taking care of it. And we got bitched at. So now we got all these issues we gotta go and deal with.
And
Darned
then
if
we,
you do, darned if you don't.
yeah, and then
that's right.
once all the screaming and yelling started, then it was, okay, now let's take a look at what Iowa code says and what the Iowa League says for the city or the municipalities to deal with. And it was kind of like, uh-oh, yeah, we've been doing it wrong, so now we're trying to fix it.
So what was their suggestion?
There is no suggestion.
The suggestion was Holland.
You cannot use
Wait
till
taxpayers,
May.
you cannot use the taxpayers' money to move private citizens.
Yeah, well, that's
what
that's
you're
what I
doing.
was curious, if
That's
we've
what
got
you're
this issue with, we can't take it off our sidewalk and put it in the street to move it away. Other people have to have that too, right?
Yeah.
Other cities, so what did they do about it?
All the,
Nebraska hauls it.
Every single one of them? Like,
What do you mean by?
like a business owner, like, Holstrom, what do they do with their snow that's
Yeah, I
on
don't know.
there? You know?
I don't know how they do on Main Street.
Cause isn't that what
that's
she's
a
talking
And you
about?
need to figure out some way, because it's retarded to haul your own.
it is,
Right,
it is.
especially on Main Street.
We should see what.
Basically, we're new to this, because
This
this law was
just
just last
came about
month,
last
and this
month.
came across.
So we're just.
So I mean, it's not like something
all
dealt last
agreed on
year.
this right now.
Right.
It all came from church deal.
On Main Street, typically, the property line goes out to the front of the building. In other words, and from building to building belongs to the city. The sidewalk, the whole sidewalk area belongs to the city. That's different when you go to residential areas. When you go to residential areas.
Well, that makes sense.
The sidewalk is on
So,
the city's
so
property.
is the city liable to clean the
They can
sidewalk?
push the snow out
No,
on
no, the individual has to clean the sidewalk, but in the commercial areas, they are allowed to push, typically, they are allowed to push the snow out onto the street, and the city sweeps that, takes it down and sweeps it away, falls it away and so forth, but not in residential areas.
So as an example, as a business owner,
Duty to take it off, but it's the city snow.
Correct.
It's the city snow, right?
It's all city.
so as an example, as a business owner, what we're supposed to do is clean off our sidewalks and push it into the street, and then it's the city's responsibility because we own a business on Main Street, essentially, correct?
If it's commercial.
Well, if that's law, I'm cool with that. I mean, that totally sounds.
Well, that simplifies that part at least
Yeah.
right
They got
there.
that taken care
If it's zoned commercial,
Is that
then you
just,
can do it. If it's zoned residential,
You cannot, and the
is that
churches
just
would be
Main Street or is that any business district? I mean, is it?
That's commercial.
zone commercial, zone commercial.
I
And the
don't
city or the churches are not zone commercial because they are.
What are
both
we zoned
city
right now,
residential areas.
James?
And see.
What are we zoned right now?
But that's all private property again. You
Okay,
can't take
so
that
then,
snow
there you
out
go.
onto the city streets.
so on Main Street, then are we going to
So it would be,
say it's okay to business owners and and commercial to push
shovel
their,
their sidewalk out onto
they
the
have to
street.
maintain their sidewalks,
Yep.
shovel it, they can shovel in the street, in case he's gonna take it away.
All right, Casey. More work.
Well, that's only sensible. I
That's
guess.
what
Casey,
council
when
talked
you're,
about.
Casey, when you're doing Main Street, you don't want someone in there doing the post office. You know what I mean? You don't want somebody in there. It's easier for you to just do it.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, the
Yeah.
same way I don't want vehicles that have been sitting overnight, you
Yeah.
gotta come on, then you go around, yeah, so that.
Yeah.
So it would
And
be
then-
like,
How many times a day do you clean Main Street, cause that's the other thing
Well,
I wanna do
whatever.
with one pickup.
You know what I mean?
You know, people can get mad at me all they want, because a lot of them did, which is fine, I understand. But with one pickup the size of this town, if you get a wet heavy snow, that's all that truck wanted. So yeah, I get Ed, but I'm not gonna force Ed at his age, being a veteran, to expect him to get up at the same time more than I am. He gets there at 6 or whatever, and he helps me out after that. I appreciate everything he does. But if I clean it at 3:30 in the morning, because a lot of people say, oh, well, I gotta be on the road at 4. Okay, fine, I clean at 3:30, well, then I'm gonna go around the rest of the town. I may come back at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and there's another 4 or 5 inches. And somebody says, well, I was at the post office at 6:30 in the morning, there was 5 inches of snow. Yeah, since I cleaned it, there's already that much more, And I'm not gonna bust up this truck. People say, oh, God, it takes him so long, man, did it so quick. I didn't break a thing on that truck other than tear snow flaps off from rubbing against curbs trying to roll snow over it. I'm not gonna beat up the truck. I appreciate having the truck. So
Well,
if it takes me
basically, it's
all
what
along-
we've been doing in the past. They've
What?
been going out the road with it, we get rid of it.
Shorten and do that.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, from what I've done.
Basically, that's what went on.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think it's
No.
a big deal. I mean, that's what needs to be done.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, anything goes commercial.
As long as you're sure,
As long as
that's,
it's
as long as
zoned
we're
commercial.
sure that's the way it is.
because I'm not gonna, wanna shovel my stuff from my driveway out into the street and not expect, I'm residential. But I would think that anything that's commercial on Main Street, they should be able to shovel out onto the street and, onto the parking area. And the city then take our plow and plow. But if it's residential, like the churches are in residential, both of them are, we can't do anything to help them out.
They're on their own as far as removal of it, their sidewalks,
That's
we're
correct.
back to, they can't just throw that in there and and leave it on in the parking area or wherever you're parking.
What about like the bank, with their big parking areas and, you know,
The bank parking area
and
In
the
the
behind
front?
it is their problem.
They do that.
I think the banks, commercial,
Cause I think
right?
somebody said
Yes.
something about parking lots.
I'm pretty sure the bank's commercial.
Right, but I think they excluded parking lots, I think you said.
The only thing
Would be the back
in the
one.
bank would be the front.
The back one you're talking, the front?
In front of the bank, that's it.
I would say the
parking lot
back.
in
The
the
back's
back, that's their
So
problem.
where it's more or less just
That's what I think
sidewalk.
it is.
So where does the school fall into that?
Not commercial.
It's not.
Commercial.
They're on
So it'd be roughly like Johnson's to my building. You've got buildings in between that aren't commercial, you know. You just swipe down the street and be
What
done with
what
it.
isn't commercial?
No, I don't think there is a building.
is
I
it?
think they're commercial in between.
Oh, well, yeah, you got
Yeah,
the,
all that commercial is.
They're all commercial to you. They're
Yeah.
commercial to you. You're the end. You're the line there on this side.
Yeah, because right next to me
And
would
the
be
bank's
residential.
The bank right
Well,
there.
Hartman-
Yeah, 'cause I think we're the line at the end of our street.
Hartzell and
And-
mine.
Hartzell's, and then you got the,
Chiropractic, Dale, clinic, that side.
To the locker.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? Does that answer Marcy? Okay. Hi. Thank you.
For? Oh, you're welcome.
I was not in town. I've heard wonderful things said about
I had
the
fun.
Halloween party for the kids, so thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anything else? Anybody else have anything?
couple.
Yep.
I was confronted by one of the people that was talking about removing the snow in front of the school. And he wanted to know if it would be all right if he got permission to push the snow from the school across the street back to the parking, which they have done for many years. As long as he's not blocking anything that Casey's done and cleans up his mess.
As long as it doesn't leave a
Right,
problem.
exactly. And I said, well, I see no problem with that because they've done it for many years.
Yeah.
And then my other question was on the, last month we discussed, we were talking about, fines for ordinances and things like that, and I did some looking up on that. And some of the cities, like I talked to the city clerk at Osage, and that's, patrolled by, they have their own police, so their ordinances are taken care of by the police. And I talked to Elma, and Elma is not, so they have to take care of their own ordinances somehow or another. And if anybody disobeys the ordinances and say it's a continuous thing, they have a fine of $65. And then after that, if it's done again, it's a 25%.
This is Alma
Plus Elma,
plus the 65.
yes,
25% increase.
each time.
So if they do it again, if they don't address it.
If they don't address it.
Okay. That's something, I mean, after January 1st, council should dig into that.
Yeah, well, we had discussed it last month.
You're
that
welcome.
We were supposed to.
No, but I mean, that's the way
Back
to
on the
enforce ordinances, is have a way to enforce it.
Because, because right now we just get laughed at on some of our
Yeah.
ordinances that we do not enforce
Yeah.
anything. And we can't. So,
You're not gonna start enforcing the one that says no spitting.
That was
It'd be a moneymaker.
about tying your horse or something?
Yeah, yeah, you're not spitting when you.
Well, we got Amish now that we gotta watch out for.
Anybody else got anything? Okay, I need one of those things, Gary.
I make a motion with adjourn.
I'll second it.
Yes.
Kevin Bill?
Yep.